Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Leadership Advancement Mentorship Podcast, a podcast that inspires you about leadership development process and the place of mentorship in the life of a leader. And with me this week is a fellow Maxwell Leadership team members and a well-respected leader, that's someone that I really respect, and humility is very outstanding. I like to really relate with leaders that are very humble, not just having the, I like people that are living the life, the values, because that is so much important to me. And she's a really outstanding leader, so today we'll be really learning a lot from her. So I will introduce her in full because she's going to speak about herself and give us all the things that we need to know about her in brief. So welcome with me to this podcast, Darlene Drew, all the way from Alabama. Yeah, Darlene, let's just meet you, please. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Michael, for including me among the people that you are speaking with. It is an absolute pleasure of mine, one, to support you in what you're doing, and also understanding and knowing the absolute importance of leadership at every level. Developing people at the entry level, at the mid level, and as we move up to higher levels, to the CEO level. The fact of the matter is, we don't stop learning. It's important that we don't stop ourselves from learning, particularly if we're going to continue to lead other people. So Michael, to your intro and to your point in terms of sharing a bit about me, first and foremost, I am a product of my amazing beloved parents. I'm the youngest of 11 children. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and I had the benefit of two loving parents who are now gone. But everything that I learned coming up, my first leaders were my beloved parents. And I don't even think they thought of themselves as leaders, but they certainly were leaders. And I'm the first of my 10 siblings to go to college. And the story behind that is we grew up with my parents not having a whole lot of money. Early on in our lives, we lived in what's called housing projects in areas where, that were not necessarily adequately serviced, if you will. And the fact of the matter is, my parents didn't make a lot of money at that time. And so that's where I started. But what I tell people all the time, whereas people described us by economic status as poor, I believe that my life was enriched as a result of the richness in my parents and what they sowed into me. And I grew up watching my parents and watching my 10 siblings. I was the youngest. So, that's what you do. And it helped me determine what I wanted to become in my life. And one of the things, in order to become a lawyer, which is what I wanted to do, I needed to go to college. And none of my siblings had gone. None of my siblings thought that it was an option for them. And I thought it was the only option. I knew that it was what I needed to do. I didn't worry about all the other things. I trusted that it was going to work out. And that led me, completing college, to working in the federal prison system. That was supposed to be a short time, just to make some money to go to law school. And if you've ever had a time in your life, to you, Michael, and those who are listening, where you start on one path and then something changes and you go on another, and you do it in obedience to God. I'm a person of faith, and I believe in God. And I believe that when I was working as a young correctional officer in the prison, that it shifted in my spirit, that the people that you want to serve, I wanted to serve a certain body of people as a lawyer, to represent them and the difficulties that are often faced for various groups of people in the criminal justice system. Well, when I was working as a young officer, I saw those people already there, still trying to get certain things in order to prepare for court, those who were what we call pretrial inmates. And so from that, one, getting the awakening that this is where I was supposed to stay, and going through all of the obstacles. There was a series of obstacles that I encountered when I started working in the prison system. First of all, the first question that people had is, who are you? You a girl. And the statement was that I wouldn't make it. So what I say to that is never let anybody tell you what you can make or not make. Our success is largely driven by what we're willing to do. So fast forward, I worked for that agency for 32 and a half years, moved up to various levels of leadership at the entry level, at the mid level, at the upper level, ultimately to the CEO level. And what it's shown me and further convinced me of is the absolute importance of leadership, of developing leaders, of never getting to the point that we as leaders think that we've arrived, that we've seen it all, we know it all. And so we don't need anything else, because we become dangerous to ourselves, and even worse, dangerous to other people.
Wow. What a load of journey you've been through. In fact, I'm totally unaware of your journey. Thank God for this podcast. And because when we get to know something about people, it helps us to appreciate what they've overcome. And as one of my mentors said, the word overcome means going over until you come to the other side. That suggests that there are obstacles, there are things you have to get over. I believe in this life, for you to excel in life, there are 4 things that you need to do. I just create an acronym based on the name of this podcast, LAMP. LAMP. And the first thing is learning. So we need to have an in-depth learning about a particular subject that we want to excel in. The second thing is application. So we want to apply those things that we are learning, because when we apply what we are learning, we produce our own personal experience. And the only proof of a learning is a change in behavior. If our behavior doesn't change, then we've not learned nothing. So the third one is mentorship or coaching. The place of mentorship is very, very, is so indispensable to us to excel in life. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, our chief want in life is to be inspired by someone who could help us to become who we want to be, what we could be. And this is very vital. The last one is peer. The P represent peer. What it means, peer means PEER, means positive, encouraging, empowering relationships. Because you need, apart from father, you have a mentor, you need people that you are learning together, you are being mentored together, you are heading towards the right direction. And that's what this podcast is all about. So my first question to you, Ms. Darlene, is this. Like I said, Ms. Darlene, I want you to know how much I really appreciate you. I respect you as a person, as a peer, because I see what you do every week. I followed you on LinkedIn. I see that you are making a difference. I love people that are making a difference, and instead of people that are just focusing on themselves, feeling sorry about themselves, having pity party that even God himself cannot attend. I like people that are full of life and I have so much to give to life. So tell us, at what point did you develop the awareness of your leadership potential? Because I believe everyone has potential for leadership. So at what point in your life that you became aware of that leadership potential? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I would say the point that I knew that something was different, and it wasn't really so much me automatically knowing, but it was other people telling me, that you have something special. And it actually started growing up in Chicago. I attended a little small, what's called a small storefront church, right? Okay. And so I was the kid in Sunday school when the Sunday school teacher would ask a question, I got an answer, or she'd ask who read whatever. I read. And so then they started putting us in groups, right? And I would find myself, whatever I learned, teaching it to the degree a person that young would even know, but I knew what I read and I knew what I captured from it, and I would start sharing it. And that just continued from a young age to teenager on up, where I was placed. Oftentimes, it wasn't even necessarily me always volunteering. Oftentimes it was being voluntold and me simply saying yes, because I was excited about it. And the whole thing about learning and sharing it with others, however large or small amount of insight that I gained, I never could keep it inside of me, right? I mean, if I read a book, I had to tell everybody, you got to read this book. If I learned something, I just had somebody was going to hear about it besides me, and just continuing that throughout my life. And certainly by the time I was in high school, at that point, I knew it myself, that there was that I had a responsibility to grow and to lead. And so I began running for offices as a high schooler. And I'll never forget, because I wasn't necessarily a person who was, I was pretty reserved, but passionate about the things that I was passionate about. And that's where my passion would show. But I never forget one time in high school that one of my teachers saw that I was running for vice president of the senior class. And he said, you're not outgoing enough. You know, you're not extroverted enough. You'll never win. And I just smiled at him and won. And so, you know, I think knowing that and then pursuing the things that are inside of us, and that just continued from college, from high school to college, then in my various careers, I knew that I had a responsibility of commitment to my own growth and development.
Yeah, in fact, that takes me to the next question.
Okay.
Because there's a time of awareness and there's a time of acceptance of responsibility for development of the leadership potential. Now, a wise man said, for change to happen, two things have to happen. The first one is awareness. So that's why I asked the first question. The second one is acceptance of responsibility for change. So you can be aware and not take responsibility for the development, so that to bring about the full expression of that change. So at what point in your life did you begin to take responsibility for the development of your leadership potential that has led to your leadership advancement? So at what point in your life, and share with us the process that you've gone through, the process of because many people they don't know the story, they only see the glory.
Ooh.
Yeah. And there's a story behind the glory.
Yes.
It's just like an iceberg. They just see the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
The whole work. Because if you do a 5 minutes presentation, there's a lot that has gone into the preparation. So at times people are uncomfortable that, why should we pay you $10,000 for 1 hour speech? Listen, it is not a 1 hour speech. The presentation was 1 hour, but the preparation was more than 1 hour. So when you are paid, you're not paid for that time. You paid for the preparation that goes into that time. Because champions are not made in the ring. They are just announced in the ring. So share with us your process of development and the price that you paid towards your leadership advancement. Thank you.
Oh, that is so good. We could just stop right there. I mean, you just drop the mic right there. That is so good. Amen.
We're not stopping. We still got so much to say.
Wow. I would say that when it got really serious to me, you know, so when I was growing up in high school and all of that, college, but when it got really serious to me is when I started as a young correctional officer. And it started with having a situation with a leader, right? And in that case, the particular leader was one of my supervisors, and I had something happening in my family. My mother was very, very, very ill. And we all know, you know, if we have the benefit of our loving parents, that's everything, that's the world to you. And I shared with him what was happening, and his words to me, after I showed up for work on time as I was normally scheduled, and he said, oh, we changed your shift, so you just have to stay here for 4 hours until the new schedule that we put out starts. And I said, but I shared with you about my mom and that, you know, the different things that I would be responsible for doing that day when I got off work at the scheduled time. And he said, well, you're going to have to choose between the organization and your mother. that day, it was clear to me that I had to assume the responsibilities that were in front of me. It was clear to me that there's a such thing from my own experience of good leadership and bad leadership. What I was experiencing in that moment was bad leadership, and that there had to be some accountability for that. So even with my young self, I was all of 20 something, very young at that time. I knew it was wrong. And so I wrote a memo to the person, the second highest at the organization at the time. And I shared with him my story. And the next day he called me in and he called the other leader in and he said this. And these words are words that have stayed with me since that time, decades ago to now. And he said, first, let me apologize to you for what my leader said, because it was wrong. Then the other thing he said, and let me ask you the most important question. How is your mom? You see what I'm saying? So as leaders, we have a responsibility to serve people, and people deserve, I believe all people deserve the benefit of leaders who will lead well. Yeah. So I learned then that it was my responsibility to continue to grow as a leader and to accept the responsibilities that come with it. And it wouldn't be about just me growing, but me teaching the things that I learned along the way, and getting mentors and learning from them as well.
Wow. So that takes me to the next question. You always kind of kickstart the next question. So who are the people that inspired you on this part of leadership advancement? Who are the people that has poured into your life? That maybe like you want to mention 3 people that have inspired you and that has contributed towards your leadership advancement.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. So the first people to inspire me were my parents. And I said that I don't think they thought of themselves as leaders, but what my parents taught me and what I saw in them was humbleness. Gosh, they were the most humble people. They were compassionate. They cared about people. They were always giving, and they were hard workers. I mean, they worked and worked and worked. They demonstrated to us the importance of working. So first it started with them. And then I had, as a young person, actually the first job I ever had where I was paid, then I had a leader who was always with us, who was always by our side, showing us what he wanted us to do, and then coming in and working with us. And he was the first leader that modeled excellence to me, where he didn't just talk about what excellence should be like, but he showed us what it looked like. So that was the second one. And then fast forwarding up to by this time, I'm now in a CEO level myself, but still growing and still needing the benefit of a mentor and people who invest in me. What stands out very clearly to me is I worked in a prison. I was a warden, and things happen in prisons. And we had a disruption of our facility where about 150 inmates decided that they were going to do what they wanted to do. And so there's certain measures that we take to get things into the normal operation. And I say all of that to say one of my mentors, who was also my supervisor at the time, so though I was CEO, over 2,500 people under my leadership, plus that's inmates and then adding the staff, I still had a leader who I highly esteemed. And this leader, when we had a very disruptive incident, he could have been critical of me. He could have just started thinking of all kinds of things and saying, well, you're at fault because of this, this, and this. But here's what he said to me, Michael. He said, Warden Drew, what do you need from me? That is leadership. What he said, and his question was a way of showing support. His question was a way of saying, I'm here for you. And his question was a way of saying, I believe in you. Run your place. And that's exactly what I did. And so those are 3 that stand out in my mind. And they still affect my life in a very profound way to this day.
Wow, that's awesome. The next question is this: what can you say about the significance of mentorship to your leadership advancement?
Yes, probably could say it in about 4 words. You got to have it. You have to continue to be mentored. And if you're not mentored, today is the day Today is the day. Whoever hears this and you have things that you want to do or things that you're doing it by ourselves is not enough to get us where we need to go. And plus, doing it by ourselves is so much more harder. It's doing it alone. But having the benefit of a mentor, someone who can say to you and share with you what my experience has been is this, where we get the insight of someone who's been where we're wanting to go, and they're generous enough to share with us what worked for them and giving us options where we can choose what we think will work for us.
Wow, that was awesome. To me, I believe that mentors are ordained to deliver us from tormentors. If you look at the word tormentor, it says T-O-R before mentor. And I believe that T-O-R, because I play with word, that T-O-R really means the outcome of refusal to have a mentor. So I believe that because lack of a coach will make us become victim of reproach. Because a good coach, which is also means mentor, does something using the acronym of coach. And the first one is C. That's what a good coach does. A good coach, these are 5 common characteristics of a good coach, which is also means a mentor. Because I said part of the 4 things that we need to excel in life is LAMP, L-A-M-P, and the M is the mentorship, which is a coach, a mentor, a coach. So a good coach cares for the people that they coach. That's the C. Then the O, a good coach observes their attitude, behaviors, and performance. That observation is very powerful. There's a power of observation. And a good coach, the A part is align, their strengths, for peak performance. So they know how to match the strength of the mentee for peak performance. Because we all have strength and we all have weakness. We don't work on our weaknesses because we are weak in our weaknesses. The only weakness that we work on, according to John Maxwell, is the weakness of choice. But as far as our weakness is concerned, we can collaborate with other people. But when it comes to our strength, that's what we work on. There's no way I can work on my singing now. I can make it to American Idol. I can win no medal because there's no way I can work on my sprinting. I can win 100-meter dash in the Olympic because that is not my strength.
Yeah.
So then there's the next one called C. A good coach or a mentor communicates and give feedback. They communicate and give feedback about the performance of the mentee. And the last one, which is H, is a good coach or mentor, help them to improve their lives and performance. Now, what is your commitment towards mentoring the new generation? That's my last question. Thank you.
Wow, mentoring the new generation. It's one of my passions, like yours, because it's so important. And I think that there is just with young people is so much excitement, so many things that we can share with them in order for them to assume positions that many of us are assuming now or have assumed. And so I believe that we have an absolute responsibility to mentor young emerging leaders, that we have a responsibility to do it. For one, look, we're not going to be here forever.
Yeah.
Right. We're not going to be here forever. So we have a responsibility, I believe, to the space in the world that we occupy, that we're readying and preparing people for whatever seats we sit in. It's not for us to stay forever. And we have that responsibility to sow into the lives of people, just like people sowed into the lives of us. It would be so irresponsible and selfish for us not to do it. And how invigorating it is to take some young people under our arms like people did us and nurture and develop and make ourselves available and share with them the things that we've learned and be willing to listen. Although we've walked the walk, oftentimes what I find with young people is that they'll share something with me and I'm like, whoa, I didn't know that. So I think we have to also keep ourselves humble so that we can receive the input that they share with us, because, they are out and working and serving. And oftentimes they come with some things that I didn't know. And I'm like, wow, that's a new one. So I think it is sewing into them, but also understanding, not putting ourselves above them, but walking with them and serving.
In fact, what you just described is what Dr. Tim Elmo called reverse mentoring. There's a place of reverse mentoring that even though we're mentoring some people, we put up a mentee hat to learn timely stuff from them. And then we put up our mentor's hat to share timeless stuff. So the reverse mentoring is a forum where we have the timely and the timeless, So when we have the mentor share timeless insight, but the mentee, they are sharing timely because they have a different generation. There's some things that they've been exposed to. But the question I really want to hear from you is, do you have some set of young people that you are mentoring, that you are pouring to? That's my question.
Yes. And the answer to that is yes, always.
Okay. Yeah.
Always have them. Always will, as long as there's breath in me, I will.
That's
and
awesome.
It's so exciting to mentor them. So yes, absolutely.
Exactly. That was beautiful. Yeah, it's been a great time. This is your host, Dr. Michael KOKU, on the Leadership Advancement Mentorship Podcast. I believe we've learned a lot about, the journey of Mrs. Darlene Drew. Before we close, and can you share with the audience how they can connect with you?
Certainly. You can reach me 3 ways. One, by phone. I do answer it. It's 256-283-9205. You can also reach me by website, www.johnmaxwellgroup.com/Darlene Drew, one word, Darlene Drew. Or if you wanted to send me a loving email, then you can reach me at Darlene@leadershipconditioning. Think of that, leadershipconditioning.com. And I'd be happy to speak with you and connect.
That's good. Thank you, Ms. Darlene Drew. It's beautiful, really, being with you. And I believe we've learned a lot from you. And we just appreciate you for coming to this podcast. Thank you.
The pleasure.